Physical beauty is, I would hope, different to everybody. But we do tend to, as humans, I feel as a society, we do find ourselves falling into specific forms of beauty. But we do, like back to the point, we do tend to pick a few things that we call beauty, and they tend to be the same, and I think because humans don't like change a lot. So when I see change or something different, I grab onto that as beauty, because it's almost like a hopeful feeling to me that I can feel good about change, or that the change might be something good. And then I hope that might read, if somebody's looking at it and it's a little unconventional, I hope that they might dream with that, because they might be trying to work out why. They look at it and say, well, why is that there? Hopefully. But a lot of times I hear, things like, oh, I could do that, or, oh, that's just, that's garbage. Why would you photograph that, or whatever. That's not offensive to me. It's just, it's unfortunate, because there's so much you can see in everything, right? And if you get good at making everything, something beautiful out of everything, then less will affect you in a negative way when bad things happen.
Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
Hello, Reflectives, and welcome to episode 419 of the Stark Reflections podcast. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre. In today's episode, I have a conversation, a chat, an interview with my best friend, Steve Gaydos. As some of you may know from previous personal updates in previous weeks, I was in New Brunswick speaking at a writers' conference there, WordSpring 2025. And I've never been to that beautiful, gorgeous province before. I had no idea how amazing New Brunswick was, which is why I'm so glad I decided to drive there. And when I mentioned it to my buddy Steve in Ottawa, I was like, hey, can I stay at your place on my way to New Brunswick? And he said, it'd be great to go. So we made a road trip of it. And we just got back to Ottawa last night, which would have been June 5th. And I have a wedding to go to this Saturday in North Bay, so I'm staying in Ottawa because it's easier to do that than to go all the way back home and then back up north to North Bay. But anyways, we're on the road for a full week. We had an absolute blast, met some amazing people along the way, and rediscovered newfound love for a part of Canada I had never been to. Steve had only been to when he was young. But oh my God, what a magnificent trip. So this episode is basically Steve and I in conversation, talking a little bit about himself as an artist and creative person, and just reflections in general. So I hope you enjoy this episode. There won't be any other sort of personal update, no comments from recent episodes, or even an ad read. I'm just going to get right into the bumper and play this clip of Steve and I. And this was recorded in Rivière-du-Loup, which is in Quebec, and it's sort of like a really good stopping point along the way in our journey. We stayed there on the way there and on the way back. So without further ado, I'm going to roll the bumper, and we'll get right into this chat with Steve. All right, here we are in a hotel room in Rivière-du-Loup. Is that how you pronounce it?
Rivière-du-Loup.
Riviere de Loup. Okay, here we are.
That's my best attempt at it anyway.
That works. That works. A little bit more of a French flair there going on. So I am with my buddy Steve, my bestie for since when did we meet? Like, I mean, we kind of hung out a little bit when we were kids, but we didn't really get together till what?
Mostly high school, mid high school, I guess.
Swinging High.
Yeah.
which was a musical that we did, right?
Yeah.
We were the backstage people.
The backstage crew, eating Skittles.
Yeah, eating Skittles.
Wearing black.
That's right. Yeah. But longtime listeners would know that Steve is he's the ST in Stark, in the whole Stark brand. Do you remember when that first started? Like when we came up with the concept?
Yeah, I came in from class one day and you showed me some business cards.
That was in university though. That was like post-secondary. I was thinking about when we were in high school still.
No, we didn't do that then, I don't think.
No, but we talked about the concept, right?
I don't remember, I guess.
Really? Wow. Oh, that's so fascinating because that was, I remember we were at my parents' house and we were goofing around as we were usually doing, like, whatever sketches and talking about things that we wanted to do and the concept of Stark. We could have a company one day. And I would write and you would animate. And that was Stark. That's why in university right. I came home with the cards. You're like, maybe you tried to block that out.
No, I guess, but I think you presented it like, oh, we're going to use this name for our DJ name, and it was news to me, but it worked out well.
So and this is back in the day when getting business cards was not easy, right? Like it wasn't like they are today. You can just crank them out.
Yeah, well, I think you went to a quick copy place and they did the nice faux raised letters with.
Yeah. So I guess of course, many things, I just didn't ask you. I just went and did it, right?
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Just like now.
Just like this. Oh, Steve, by the way, we're going to record this for my podcast because I don't have an episode yet. Well, on behalf of all people who are forced to hang out with me, I apologize profusely to all the things I've done to you, such as forcing you into Stark.
I don't think it was all that bad if I'm still here 40-some years later.
Yeah, that's true. But you were there. So when I needed the logo done for my first self-published book, I reached out to my graphic designer friend and said, you kind of have an eye for things. Can you do this for me?
Oh, yeah, the book cover for A Case of Beer.
Yeah. $24 back in the day. Did I even buy you that case of beer?
I don't know.
Okay.
But there were 39 edits.
39 what?
Edits.
Oh, to it. Oh, jeez. Oh, man. Good old time. So we're on this road trip. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is because in the car, we had a lot of time touring through New Brunswick, going through, I guess, Ottawa, through Montreal, Quebec. Lots of time to talk, and just so many moments where I thought, oh man, if only I had been recording. It's too bad your car doesn't automatically record stuff that's going on in the car.
Oh, I'm sure it does. It's up in the cloud somewhere. I'll bet.
So
let me just take my tin hat off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all being recorded all the time. We just don't have access to it. We're not billionaires. So I was just thinking about some of the artistic things that we talked about. Now you've lived a creative life, photography, graphic design, and music. I guess would those be three of your main passions?
Well, I don't play music, but I learned to play guitar, but I only read tabs. But yeah, I have a fond appreciation for music and any art form, and I am a graphic designer.
And you've been a graphic designer most of your life.
Probably, I guess, if you count the early days of working as a sign maker, probably since I was 25. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, sign maker.
And now I'm really old, so that's a lot of math.
And now that you're 42.
Yeah.
I guess I want to go back to the concept of. What was it about, or what do you think it was that got you into music? As an aficionado, as someone who appreciates.
I don't know what I was so young. My earliest memories of music are so young that I don't know what caused me to be attracted to it, if there was any one person. My siblings are all 10 to 15 years older than I am, so it's quite likely when they were teenagers and I was 5, I was grooving to their tunes. I can remember sitting on the stoop or step in front of our house listening to a little transistor radio. Most people probably don't know what a transistor radio is now. It took a 9-volt battery, which most people don't know what a 9-volt battery is. Anyway, listening to, really bad radio stations in Northern Ontario, but had to do it. Just fell asleep with an earplug in my ear every night, listening to music, and it's just how it is.
And so now your preferred listening for music, like you're the vinyl guy, right?
I've just continued my vinyl. I started a vinyl collection for my first records that were gifts when I was probably 10, until now I've maintained it all through the CD era and things like that. So I guess I get known as the vinyl guy, but a lot of people listen to vinyl again now, so it's not that unique. I actually stray away from it a bit because the new resurgence has shot the prices up a lot, and I guess there's not as much manufacturing as there was. But
is there a difference then in the quality of new albums compared to like the ones maybe produced in the 80s?
Yeah, it ranges. Actually, 80s was should have been a high point for vinyl recording, and but it sort of it didn't have the full range that earlier music did. I think it's more the music style that happened then. Right. Bass wasn't as prevalent in the 80s. Anyway, that's another topic. But you asked if it's a different quality today. Today it's a mix of better and worse. There are a group of people, I don't know if they're still doing it, but I think it was mostly out of Europe. They were making vinyl records with a CD master, so they would just have an old digital CD, and maybe even not in the time when they improved CD sound, maybe even older ones, and they would just cut it to a record, and it was even worse than the CD. But today there's so much more technology for vinyl reproduction that if you have the dollars, like we're talking over $100 a record in Canada, you can get some really nice sounding vinyl, but you can also get some really nice sounding digital high-res streams too. So right. It's hard to say which is better, but it's I don't know. I'm not an authority on that, but it's my pocketbook that governs how I buy my records now. I still like, and it's more interesting to go and buy used records in a record store, that you can just dig through the bins and look at stuff that you didn't pick up when you were a teenager, or that's new today but somebody traded it in, and you can get it for a discount, but also it's just fun to look through the archives,
Yeah, there's something magical because you have no idea what's there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every store will have its own flavor in some cases, and also every city will have a different representation of used vinyl too. So every time you're in a new city, or every time I'm in a new city, I get an itch to check them out if I can. But sometimes these stores don't open till noon or something.
And we're driving through.
Yeah. So unfortunately on this trip I didn't get any vinyl done, but that's okay.
Well, similarly, I have the same experience with used bookstores. Like, I love going to bookstores, but a used bookstore is kind of like that same sort of, what books that are no longer in print that I can't get a hold of. You can't just walk in, and you could order it, but it might be expensive. But you can get this for just a buck or two, right?
Right.
That's magic.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of magic, there's magic in little things, right?
Little things.
Little things.
Sure. Where are you going with
that? I'm looking at your T-shirt, right? So I'm looking at a T-shirt, and this is Massey Hall, which it was for the 150th anniversary.
I don't remember now.
100 something.
It's that old. It might have been its century. It might have been 100.
100. Well, let me have a look. See there. It says 130th anniversary. That was in.
That's what I couldn't remember. It wasn't
Yeah,
that.
it's not that old. But this is a classical, like a big music venue, huge music venue downtown Toronto. And this was this the artist you were talking about who did the prints?
So there's a T-shirt company. Well, I don't know if you call them a T-shirt company. They do screen printing on T-shirts. They're called Black Hair. Discovered them in the pandemic online, of course, and I think they were operating out of Sackville at the time, but they seem to have moved to Toronto. Anyway, during the pandemic, I was looking for shirts, like all of us were looking for things. And I decided to take a chance. Canadian company, and they looked. It's hard to tell online if the quality is good, but it's stunning quality. And
Right.
the thing that I have bought more since, because what I really liked about it was these aren't iron on or print on things. They're screen prints, like traditional screen printing, where you draw ink over a silk screen onto the shirt. Makes for a nicer shirt. You don't feel the surface of it.
Yeah.
It feels like there's nothing there, but it shows that it's there, and it tends to last longer than something that was just ironed on.
Right.
So I appreciate those things,
Cool.
and I really like supporting the artists.
Yeah, and they're unique too, right? Like
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I was like, there's something, and it's sometimes a discussion piece, which is important.
Right, and so in screen printing, you're striving for a very same product from shirt to shirt or item or screen print to screen print, but there is always going to be a unique quality about each one, even though it's the same subject matter. The ink is always going to adhere in a slightly different way every time it goes down.
Yeah.
By and large, they're the same, but you might be able to find inconsistencies. It's just having that hand touch, that handmade quality that really speaks to me. It's just it makes me feel more connected to the earth, the world, the people in the world. That somebody made this.
There is in the author community a resurgence movement. Johnny B. Truant's one of the authors who has done talks on. He has a forthcoming book called The Artisan Author. In this age of digital, treadmill, produce book after book after book, like a book a month or faster, just to try to just pump stuff out as quickly as possible. And Johnny's really, I'm looking forward to. I know he's just finishing up the first draft of talking about getting back to the artisan author, especially in a digital slush environment. And that, I've bought so many books through Kickstarter projects where you can get the ebook for $5 or whatever, but the special edition for $75. And it's just this beautiful, almost, it's not quite handcrafted, but it has that artisan quality, and it's rare. That there's only going to be 100 of these, or, well, with the big authors, there's going to be thousands. Right. With me, it's going to be 10 for my giant audience. Let's talk a little bit about artisan. In general, if you want to talk about artisan, if you have anything to say about that.
Well, I wouldn't call myself an authority on artisan. I'm a graphic designer, which is widely a commercial process. I do design work that is intended for thousands to hundreds of thousands of copies, and I work in the federal government, so I'm doing it literally for 40 million people. And it always has to be consistent and the same. So, but maybe that's my draw to artisan work, is that because of what my day work is, it gives me it allows me to stay in the arts and have a new focus that's not connected to my job. I don't know. But I've always liked that handcrafted thing. It goes beyond arts. Culinary arts, I guess, or thing. But we had a lunch in Shediac, and I was so impressed with how that chicken soup tasted like homemade, from a restaurant, and it really was homemade, and it's just nice to get that, especially in an environment where you're expecting a little more process, right?
Yeah.
It's a little more processed usually, but so I guess it's the artisan stuff is just the element of surprise. it's the uniqueness and the it has a kind of glow to it that way, you know, and it lasts longer in your mind and heart, and probably in your hands too. If something was well crafted by somebody, usually it was meant to last for a long time because they put their heart and soul in it, and they don't want to see it thrown out.
So I own several items. I own a few things. I mean, the Stark logo itself is a design that you made that I've kept for more than 20 years. I just used it in my first book.
Right.
And continue to recycle it.
Might be time for an
I love it. There's so much about it that is you. That speaks about you and design elements that I was always impressed with. But one of the things I still have, and I don't wear it very often anymore because it doesn't fit as well as it used to. I don't have the same body I had when I was 14 years old.
Oh no!
Is that Rush shirt? That it was like a white T-shirt, and I remember we were. I think it was in the Norries. They had a trailer parked in their driveway.
Yeah.
And I think you were working on it there, and we were all sitting around talking.
Right.
And it's the Rush, whatever, the font from their very first album.
I think we should have been outside when I was doing that, because those embroidery inks in those days were pretty toxic.
Yeah, probably. That's why I'm bald.
Yeah.
I was leaning in too close.
Yeah.
But I still have that shirt. And I remember because Liz and I go through, because I have enough T-shirts I could probably go for 6 months. And maybe not quite 6 months, but not wear the same T-shirt twice. And there's ones I don't wear very often because I don't want to wear them out. But I still have, 14 years old. So that's, I can't do the math. That's like 40 some years.
Yeah, let's not do the math.
Yeah, I've had this T-shirt, and Liz is like, "Well, what? You don't never wear this shirt?" I was like, "Yeah, but Steve made that for me, and I wore it all the time."
I can't believe it. Well, it must be so worn out. Like the inks must.
But you know what? It's not like some T-shirts get to be like cheesecloth after you've washed them like 50, 60 times. This has been washed hundreds of times.
Because that was a good classic Fruit of the Loom T-shirt.
It was, but it's still there, and it's not all worn and stuff. And even the what did you use for it? Was it an acrylic?
No, I don't know what they're made of. Pretty toxic stuff, I'm sure. It was from my brother's kit, actually. He was making T-shirts when I was much younger. He was making T-shirts for all his buddies of muscle cars and things. And he had this kit that had it was a circle, a disc that had a rim that could go around it. So you put the T-shirt onto the circle, and then the rim around it to hold it taut.
Snap it, yeah.
And that would hold it taut, so you get every fiber of you get ink into every fiber of the shirt. And then it just came in a range of colors, and it looked like oil paint tubes with a ballpoint tip on it, basically. And you just colored. And that was my first it wasn't my first and only one, because I did another silly one for you too, I remember. But
we won't talk about that one.
So those are the only two I ever did with that stuff. So you've got real originals.
I made you make that stupid one.
Yeah, but you got the only originals of Steve T-shirts. I've never made a T-shirt after that.
Oh wow! See, I thought you made one for me and maybe one for Michelle.
Oh, maybe. Pete. You know what? I remember that now. See, it was a long time ago, eh?
Yeah, I think we picked
Okay, maybe there were about 5 T-shirts.
5, but I bet you I may have one of the only surviving ones. So. From the original Gaydos collection.
There you go.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so fun times. Yeah. Fun times.
Yeah.
So we've done a lot of reminiscing because we have a common history. All those shared people that we know and experiences over the years. When you think back to those days when you were a teenager and you hadn't yet left the small town of Levack, Ontario. Like we just toured New Brunswick. You hadn't been there since you were 8 or something like that.
I think I was 10 when I toured New Brunswick with all of Canada actually with my parents on a summer road trip. It wasn't intended to be a full Canada trip. We were going out west, and then my brother-in-law was injured in Bathurst, and we went east after our west trip to support my sister. It was my first time back there since I was 10.
What are your impressions? Okay, like through Quebec, through New Brunswick, and seeing parts that you maybe only saw when you were 10, and now you're seeing it as a 32-year-old man.
But it was a lot of wonder, actually. I think that Most of my life, and this is no offense to anybody listening, this is certainly no offense to anybody listening from New Brunswick, but all of my life, I never, even though I've toured there when I was small, I never thought of New Brunswick much. Like, I mean, I guess I thought more locally. Ontario and Quebec are the closest to me, and I have friends with family in Nova Scotia. So I thought of those places, that place, as the eastern thing, but I never really thought much of New Brunswick, and it just seemed like it was a transition zone to the coast. Oh my gosh, how wrong have I been for how many years? And it's been in my back door. Like it took us a day of a day and a half of traveling, easy traveling, to get to one of the most beautiful parts of this country. Maybe even, I'm going to say maybe even the world, and I'm in great love with the landform that is Italy.
Yeah.
But and I'm not going to compare Canada to Italy by any means, but man, New Brunswick really, it has a close space in my heart after that. I'm going back many times.
Honestly, I felt the same way. New Brunswick was just one of those, whatever, in the U.S. maybe they call them the flyover province. Yeah. And I've flown over it many times, and I love Halifax and area in Nova Scotia. I haven't explored much, but oh my Lord, it's so magnificent. We were in Fredericton for a few days. We went to St. John, then we went to Moncton, but we came up the Bay of Fundy, that coast. And then Bathurst, like all these different communities have their own character too.
It's not a transition province. It's a province of transitional landscape. Like it is.
Oh yeah, mountains.
It changes every couple hours. It doesn't change drastically, but the rolling hills, the fjords, essentially, I guess they may not technically be fjords in the Fundy, but they're great landforms and waterscapes. Like I can't believe. And then you get into little more lowland fishing village type places where you can see a lot of the land and you can see a lot of the ocean. It was great. I don't remember it being that way.
Yeah, there was something. And I think we'd mentioned this in the car, is you knew that New Brunswick was the most bilingual province in the entire country.
It's a fact I heard recently, yeah.
And I love the fact that in New Brunswick people seem to very comfortably speak French and English, and it made me sad or mournful for the fact that I haven't made more of an effort to learn Canada's other official language.
Yeah, I found it interesting that different regions had their own dialects too. Some felt like our area, Northern Ontario, when there's in their both their francophone and English speaking, and then some felt more like a little more like Quebec because they were closer to the Quebec border, and then some felt even like kind of Parisian French in some areas.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting, and it's not a big. It's not a big province. Certainly a lot smaller than Ontario. If you've ever driven across Ontario, it can take a long time, depending which direction you're going. But it's a great province, a really great province. I'll be returning to it for sure.
Yeah, and then I made, I insisted we had to go to the Lefebvre Monument. No relation, apparently. Not that I know of.
Yeah.
No relation. It is like Smith. It is a common name, so you go to any French place and look at the phone book, and there'll be pages of Lefebvre's.
Right.
So that was kind of a treat for me, even though it was closed. Right, there was a coffee shop, and they had served drinks, and they had a theater and a little museum, but it was closed the day we went. But it was still. I was pretty excited that they spelled it the right way. There's a tower in Victoria, like it's a smoke tower or something from a production plant right on the waterfront, and it's got Lefebvre on it, but it's spelled, I think, without the B. They're like, we don't need this.
Because they were more concerned with people pronouncing it the right way.
Yeah, exactly. And I've taken the picture of it when I was like, hey, look, or did they I can't remember if they got it right. I don't know, I'm so used to never seeing it spelled right, so.
It's Lefebvre, right?
Yeah, Lefebvre. Yeah, all of those things. So yeah, you want to return back to New Brunswick? Like that's something you really look
I
forward
think so.
to.
Actually, it gave me the instinct that maybe, these sort of things may give me inspiration, right? I thought, well, maybe I should try to tour every one of our provinces once a year. Like just pick a province a year for the next 10 or so years. And what is it? How many provinces?
Well, which ones haven't you been in?
Well, I haven't been up to Nunavut. I mean,
Okay.
It wasn't actually registered as Nunavut when I was traveling with my parents, and it hasn't been. It's not easy to get to, but I actually want to go. I've been doing some work with my work. I've been doing some graphic design work for Nunavut buildings and things, and you get to see the pictures of the landscape. And I'd really love to take a camera up there for a month or two and interview the people and take portraits and pictures of landscapes up there. But I've been to BC. Well, I've been to all the provinces with my parents, but as an adult, I've been to BC. Flew there, so I missed all the other provinces in between, and I've been all through every corner of Ontario, just about.
Right.
There are some regions in Ontario that don't have road.
Yeah, like the northern.
Yeah.
Actual north.
Yeah, I think I've been up to Moonbeam, if it has a road. I was young then too. Anyway, I don't know. It's just I think it would be a great thing to do. Take a vacation every year in a particular province.
I love that idea.
I might have to go to Alberta first, considering the current. Oh, we shouldn't get political. I guess.
Before we kick them out.
Well, I think they're going to take themselves away. I don't want to kick them out.
No, there's enough good people.
I don't want to kick them out.
Yeah, no, there's enough good people there. I have faith.
And just all I have to say to anyone from Alberta listening: think carbon fiber.
Yeah,
It's a great product.
All right, so you mentioned photography a couple times. I wanna talk a little bit about this road trip that you took several years back, and the specific subject or spotlight. What would you call it that you focused on for your SPOW project?
Oh, that.
And we should say what SPOW is, because I hate when people use abbreviations and don't explain them.
So SPOW is abbreviation that is School for School of the Photographic Arts, Ottawa. So they don't use all of the letters in the acronym, but it's a tiny, tiny school that was started by a guy who was an instructor at a local school, and his students, and he built a little school. And it was designed to focus on the art of photography over the commercial and very technical form of photography. Anyway, I went to the school to stop myself from buying a Porsche as a midlife crisis, and I didn't have money for a Porsche anyway, so the school was more affordable. It was a 3-year program. Well, it was a 2-year program and an invitational 3rd year for artist in residence, which I was invited to partake in. And on that 3rd year, the structure of that 3rd year was the artist in residence is working on a major project and helping out with sharing their new learnings with all the new students that are coming in 1st and 2nd year. So my project was I decided that I wanted to tour all of the Great Lakes that I could. I stayed in Canada for it, so I hit them all except for Michigan.
That's not in Canada at all. Yeah.
And I was photographing industrial ports. And these aren't pretty landscapes; they're industrial.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So because I mean, everybody's taking a pretty picture, so I want to be a little different.
Like Group of 7 was doing all those.
Paintings. Yeah, but they're so hey, that's a different story because they have some real skill. They, it's not what's the word? It's not pedestrian what they do.
No, I know. So you focus on industrial.
Yeah, and a big part of it was my father died when I was in the 1st year of the school. He died in the middle of the year. I almost lost that year because he was in hospital for a long time, and I was back and forth 5 hours away in Sudbury while he was having emergencies, and we thought we were going to lose him each time. So the instructors were pretty great about that, and they helped me through it. They gave me time to do what I needed to do, and I ended up doing some great work in first year and for my final portfolio. But back to the Great Lakes project, I chose that subject because my father was a efficiency expert for the international nickel company, mining company called Inco, and all of his life. He was retired from there, of course, and he had been retired for 35 years. But that was a big part of our whole family's life. I mean, that company owned the town we lived in.
Yeah.
So I returned. I went to these ports that were owned. Well, maybe not owned, but a lot of the nickel and everything were shipped out of these ports. So a lot of places they still had the international nickel thing on it. It was a memory of my father, I guess. I'm kind of getting off subject. This is a tough one for me. Dancing around the pain, I think. You know, I chose to do this because I genuinely, we used to do a lot of road tripping with my father and my mother, and in that process, I'd sort of developed this kind of, as an adult, I have this fear of new cities. So I want to go, but when I'm approaching them, I get very anxious and nervous, and has a lot to do with my father's style as a driver, I think. But so I was doing a lot of things. I was trying to commemorate my father. I was actually using his car that was left to me after he died.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I was visiting ports that were important to his livelihood and my survival as a young person. And my father put me through a lot of school, so I owed them a lot, I suppose. And it was a subject matter that I grew up with, that I knew, industrialization, industrial things. And I'm a graphic designer, so it's an industrial type career. And I was trying to make art with it, so I was blending it that way, I guess. And I think it worked out well.
I love that. I love that. And you know what? It's funny, in all the years since you've done that project, we've talked about the project a lot, but we've never really talked about that before, which I thought was just what a wonderful tribute. A wonderful tribute to your father, to where you grew up, to so many aspects of your life that come out in that one project that's so inclusive.
So I think that was probably maybe the only art project that I've done that had the full essence of an art project. Extremely, extremely personal subject matter.
Yeah. That
turned out a body of work for people to appreciate, not out of sympathy, because there's no indication that I'm doing this in memory of my father. But so the thing that dragged me through it, the thing that gave me inspiration to do it and to go through it, were deeply personal things, which I think come out in the final work, not necessarily as what they were, but they just show a care. In the work, and so then the imagery doesn't have to be of something that everybody gets. But you just look at it and say, there's something in this because the person pours their heart. At least I hope that's how it comes across. The piece that I was talking about, that I was sidetracking with, the year that he died, I resigned from the school after he passed away on the 11th of April, and our final exhibition was on the 22nd of April. And I hadn't been to the school much from February until April. I was on and off. So I didn't have much work, but I had this collection of photographs that I was making with my cell phone of the ice breaking up on the Ottawa River as I was walking, because I was still working part-time in the government. So I was walking across the Alexandria Bridge and photographing these. They looked like landforms from a plane almost, but there's just the ice breaking up, and they're black and white, and there's these tiny little 3 megapixel images that I bound together in a handmade book, and I used that as my final piece, and I actually won the award for, I think it was Vision or something for it. And again, my heart and soul was in it, because when I was taking those pictures, I was pausing on the bridge to look at the shapes in the water and thinking about my father in the hospital. And so I think that came out in those two. But in that piece, I actually dedicated the book to his memory. I just said for Joseph John Gaydos. And I didn't put the year of death or birth or anything in it because I didn't want to form, especially then I didn't want a pity plea on that because it was my final piece for the school and I was needing it for my mark. And that was the stuff that I had that felt like it had the most of my energy in it. And that's the best I could do. And if they weren't accepting my resignation, so I was putting that forward, and it's like, okay, well, this is what I got. This is what you asked me to stay for. So here you go. And it was an independent, and thankfully it was an independent judging board that judged those portfolios. So I could know that it wasn't a pity plea.
Right. Well, I want to like that project as well because you're talking about the land formations that you saw. Yeah. Right, you're seeing something, but you're also seeing something else in it. When you go to the industrial ports, a lot of people think that this is all pragmatic, it's practical, it's whatever. It's not pretty, and yet there's beauty in those images. Whether or not anyone understands what drove the project, but that doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to you, but to the person appreciating it, is you look at it and go, "Oh, I've never really paused to look at this element that is part of making making this possible, so we can have the things we have."
Right. Oh, that
like those elements that you can see beauty in the I'm not going to say the redundant, but you can see beauty in the practical as well.
I guess there's physical beauty is, I would hope, different to everybody, but we do tend to, as humans, I feel as a society, we do find ourselves falling into specific forms of beauty. Like, I mean, if you look at all the cars on the road, they're shaped the same way, but there's actually some pragmatism in that too, because it costs a lot of money to prove a car's safety. They have to crash test them. So, if Volvo has a car this shape and people know it's one of the safest cars on the road, they're going to design their cars in the similar shape, hoping that they only have to crash test 5 of them to work out the bugs that they've done to make it look a little different,
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's the way it goes, but my brother's an industrial designer, and he talks about that a little bit.
There's some aerodynamic aspects too.
Yeah, there are, of course. But we do, like, back to the point, we do tend to pick a few things that we call beauty, and they tend to be the same, and I think because humans don't like change a lot. But so when I see change or something different, I grab onto that as beauty, because it's almost like a hopeful feeling to me that I can feel good about change, or that the change might be something good. And then I hope that might read, if somebody's looking at it and it's a little unconventional, I hope that they might dream with that, because they might be trying to work out why. They look at it and say, well, why is that there? Hopefully. But a lot of times I hear, things like, oh, I could do that, or, oh, that's just, that's garbage. Why would you photograph that, or whatever?
Yeah.
That's not offensive to me. It's just, it's unfortunate, because there's so much you can see in everything, right? And if you get good at making everything, something beautiful out of everything, then less will affect you in a negative way when bad things happen, I feel.
That is, there's an audio clip right there. So I'm constantly going, oh, there's a nice teaser.
Well, I'm not the official spokesperson on that, but...
Well, no, it's okay. We had an episode on imposter syndrome a few weeks ago.
Right. That's just my feeling, really.
Yeah. So oftentimes I will ask a creative person that I'm interviewing, what advice would they give to to somebody who's just getting started. But I'd like to take a bit of a twist or a spin on that, if I may be permitted the liberty.
Please do, because I don't have an answer to that one. To the first one.
So the twist on that I would want to say is there's Steve Gaydos in the trailer, in Levac, working on using his brother's kit to make cool things that his friends are all excited and so thrilled about, and of course this is a young person who has not yet experienced all of the beautiful and disastrous and wonderful and great and sad things that you've experienced as a person, as an artist, as somebody who appreciates beauty. What would you say to young Stefan?
Young Stefan. Well, I really don't know. I think what I needed to hear when I was 17, just before I left home at 17, halfway through, I was almost 18. I needed to hear, and it wasn't lacking for this because I had older brothers in big cities, but I really needed to hear that there was a space out there that I could fill, and maybe continue to grow in, that there was a lot more out there than what our small mining town offered a guy like me, because while I loved hockey and I loved playing hockey and I still love watching hockey today for the most part, I don't follow it that much. That town was difficult if you were a sensitive, observant person. I'm not saying that people there weren't sensitive and observant, but hockey players did well. A lot of people did well coming out of that town, actually, very well in other ways, and I just needed some encouragement because at that time I didn't really love the town the way a lot of people did. I love it today. I love what it was even for me then, because it was a wonderful, safe place to grow up for the most part. You only had to worry about the bully guys, and they were pretty strong.
I've been beat up enough times. Yeah.
And they could run fast too for some reason. But if I were to talk to myself, I would say, there is a world expanding out there for you. It really is bigger than this. True story. I'd heard it from people like my older brothers, and I'd heard it from my family, but I couldn't believe it yet. And I tried a lot of things after I left home. A lot of different things. I even tried studying business management, for Pete's sake. Huge mistake. But I guess that's all I could say.
Well, Steve, I want to thank you for letting me share you with my listeners. If somebody was looking to learn more about Steve Gaydos, is there any place that they may want to search or use the Google?
Well, I pay for a web existence, but I don't have a website right now, and it would be at, I think it's stefangaydos.ca, but it's not active.
Okay.
So if you want to write that down and keep looking every so often, you might see. Hoping to do some work again soon. I haven't been doing a lot of my own art,
okay.
So I don't have a place to play.
Well, I'd maybe suggest that next time you see something that looks intriguing and piques your interest and you see beauty in it, that's where you're going to see Steve Gaydos.
There you go.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com.